everybody. I wanted to talk to you today about something that comes up all the time for us homeschooling families, and that is the question of how do your children socialize? So how do we answer that question when people ask us? It can be so helpful to have something in mind to say and to understand that homeschooling is not going to mess up our kids. In fact, it better prepares them to live in society than, dare I say, traditional public schools do. So let's start with talking about what socialization even means. Oliver DeMille, who wrote the book, The Thomas Jefferson Education, called socialization the ability to work with people of all backgrounds, stations, and positions, and to truly care about them and nurture lifelong relationships. A little simpler definition of socialization is the ability to interact appropriately in society. Taking those two definitions into account then, how do we think of socialization in our homeschools? And really, in my opinion, different people can have different goals with socialization. We don't all necessarily think the same way or interact with the same purposes. So for you and your family, you might want to consider why you want your children to socialize in the first place, because that is very personal. It could be that you want your children to develop lifelong friendships. It could be that you want your children to know how to behave properly in regular social interactions. It could be going to the dentist or interacting with the cashier at the grocery store or at a sporting event or a mall, just regular everyday interactions. You could say that your goal as socialization is to help your child see every human being as a valuable individual regardless of their race or language they speak or social position or wealth, profession, any difference you can think of, that we want our children to see all human beings as valuable and to treat them as such. So then the question becomes, does public school achieve those? And there are a lot of limits on how children socialize in public school. And I remember back to my elementary school days, we weren't allowed to talk during class to each other. We had a classroom of 20 to 30 peers that were the exact same age. And then of course the teacher, but we didn't really converse with the teacher. They just spoke to us and gave instructions, and we were supposed to obey and follow those instructions. Then there was lunchtime, but actually we were discouraged from talking during lunch, so that wasn't very social either. There was recess, and we were able to talk during recess. Unfortunately, recess doesn't always happen, or it has been shortened in a lot of schools, which is really sad because that is a valuable time for socialization, which is an important thing for kids. So there's going to and from school if they ride the bus, that's socialization. But we can see that there are limits and that it's not really a realistic setting for preparing them for real life. When are they ever going to be in a place where they're with a group of people that are all the exact same age? It just doesn't happen. It's not going to happen in the workforce. It's not going to happen in their families. And it's not going to happen where they worship or when they have hobbies and they do things. That's just not how the real world works. And when children do get together at all the same ages, then socialization becomes less about building true friendships where they care about each other and want what's best for the other person, and it becomes more about trying to fit in, which to me seems like a really dangerous mindset to give kids, especially with the risks that go on nowadays with children engaging in risky behaviors like drugs and teenage sex. And for me, in my family, we don't want our kids to be involved in those things. And I think that's why a lot of parents want to get into homeschool, is they want to limit their children's exposure to those things. Another problem in school, obviously, is bullying. And this has been presented in some ways as bullying being character building, which I'm pretty sure we all know that bullying or enduring bullying is not character building. It's suffering and it's cruel. And schools have tried to institute anti-bullying campaigns, which is really, it's got the right intention at heart, for sure. But unfortunately, what that's turned into is that when children try to defend themselves from bullies, that they get punished. And so there's no recourse for them anymore, and they're just told to put up with it, basically, which is really sad as well and leads to really heartbreaking situations, including suicides. So that's definitely not so healthy as far as socialization goes. So the good news is that if you decide to homeschool, your child is not going to be stuck in a hole in the wall or in their basement. There are so many ways to socialize with homeschool kids. And as I was doing research for this blog post, that I've linked to it below, and I've got more details and stories there. I'd love for you to follow that and read it. But lots of homeschooling parents that have written about this topic will say that it's really funny that they get asked about their child's socialization. And when they get asked this question, most of the time they're at an event where their children are being social. They'll get asked while their kids are at soccer practice or in gymnastics. And they just want to point at their kid and say, well, they're socializing right now, aren't they? There are so many ways to socialize our kids while they're in homeschool. It can be through sports, through the community. It could be through classes at the rec center, learning to do a new skill. Our kids can socialize playing with other homeschool friends, having park dates, or doing co-op groups at 4-H clubs, theater class, visiting museums and zoos. They totally socialize there and interact and learn how to enter a place and how to communicate with others as they're going from exhibit to exhibit and being polite and showing good behavior. That's definitely an important part of socialization that our kids can absolutely get in homeschool. We socialize when we travel. Again, interacting with people at the airport or at the gas station, learning proper social behavior. We learn that through all of these activities. Even in private lessons, like music lessons, when our kids are one-on-one with an adult and they're actually having a conversation and responding and being polite and expressing their interests or their concerns, that's a very important part of socialization that actually isn't received in school when they're simply receiving instruction and told to obey, but their concerns and needs aren't met, which is understandable because teachers have 25 or 30 other students to take care of. It's just not possible to address every student's concerns in schools. So in homeschool, we are able to do that. So actually what happens in homeschool a lot of the time is the need to limit your children's socialization because that's all they want to do and they have all the time in the world to do it. Although they really don't, because we want them to achieve their academic goals as well. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, that it's answered some of your questions about how homeschool students can be socialized. They are very social and they are prepared to interact with others in society in real life. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out my blog, and I hope to see you soon.